Coaching Matters, and we will check out the latest addition to Mario Cristobal's staff, just announced a few hours ago. Talking Canes with all of you for the next hour here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. Please hit the like button before we get going so you don't forget that. Comments and questions in the chat are appreciated, as well as the super chat contributions as well. Cam Underwood here. As always, stateoftheu.com is the place to be on a regular basis for the U. What are we doing there?
I was going to do some stretching and then just kind of was embracing my weird.
Then you flexed, and if you would have seen what I saw, because the shot froze, so you froze like this. I don't know how long you actually held it, because then it went like, you were.
Yeah, it was only a second, but hey, yeah, just hey, doing the thing. So yeah, man, good to be here and everything. Good to be with you guys. And yes, we're leading off with coaching. So we hinted at it last week, or it was being reported that Chevis Jackson from Marshall would be joining his former boss, Lance Guidry, as the cornerbacks coach here. You know, he has been coaching for a while. Chevis Jackson has. He worked with Guidry and had one of the... Remember when we were talking about bringing Lance Guidry in? We're talking about, well, they had the number one pass defense in America that previous... So you bring the DC and the cornerbacks coach now from that defense that a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, had the best passing defense, or 2 years ago, best passing defense in America. That'll work, you know? And then, you know, I know that Miami, we're strong on, or have been for the most part, when you bring in coaches that are former players, they're guys who demonstrated the excellence on the field in their playing career that they're trying to coach guys to have. So remember we had Thomas Brown come in as offensive coordinator and running backs coach and everything. Yeah, he was at Georgia wearing number 20. He did this, that. Mario Cristobal, two-time national champion offensive lineman. You know, obviously Mirabal, his right-hand man, coaches it, but like, you know, doing all those things. Chevis Jackson was a 3-year starter at LSU. He was unanimous first team All-SEC in 2007, started on that team that won the national championship over the Buckeyes in 2008, the BCS championship game. And then he was a third-round pick in the league, didn't have the success in the NFL that he had in college. But, again, this is a borderline All-American, consensus, unanimous, first-team All-SEC player at LSU at cornerback. Guys, Chevis Jackson could hoop. You know, like when he played, he was that guy. And I went and I looked up, you know, the 2007 All-SEC team. Shout out to my boy Fred. We were having that conversation on the phone the other day. All-SEC. So just to give you a rundown of like the kinds of players that were of the ilk of performance of Chevis Jackson. Mark, you remembering some?
Well, I'm sure I remember all of them. Whether I'm going to be able to come up with them or not is another thing. But I know at that point, guys like Tim Tebow were obviously on the offensive side of the ball. But
Sean Moreno, Darren McFadden, Earl Bennett, Kenny McKinley, Jonathan Luggs from Arkansas at the offensive center, who was first-team All-American. Michael Orr and Andre Smith at the tackles, Glenn Dorsey, Geno Atkins at D-tackle, Wesley Woodyard, Ali Highsmith, the new Patriots head coach Gerard Mayo, Brandon Spikes. And with all of that, Craig Steltz, also in the same LSU secondary, and unanimous first team, Chevis Jackson. So when you think back, oh yeah, I remember what those guys did that year, and like he was on par with that. So I say all of that to say that he has the bona fides of performance from his playing career, and now transitioning for the last 15 years or 13 years into coaching, has that demonstrated success as well. So, I like it. this also points to me something that we were talking about last week. Excuse me, that Lance Guidry is going to coach safeties because he played safety, has coached that before. And when you bring in a 10th assistant and give him the title of cornerbacks coach, I played cornerback, I coach cornerbacks, I do cornerbacks, not defensive backs, even though there's going to be a measure of cross training and things like that, right? Because clearly you're going to have safeties who need to have cover skills and, there are things like that, and be able to embody that kind of movement. But since you have noted him as cornerbacks coach exclusively, there's nobody coaching safeties, and the defensive coordinator who played that position of safety does not have his own position group that he's coaching. That to me points that he will be DC and safeties coach. As opposed to the last couple of years when Kevin Steele just said, he was too old for this shit and he's not coaching a position, he's coaching the defense. And hey, look, you get to that level of your career, hey, I'm not mad at it. He's like, no, I've been in the trenches. Let the young boys get it. I will design the plays and call the plays. You deal with the day-to-day coaching. But yeah, it points towards Guidry coaching the safeties, which would then use up all of the assistant slots. And then we move forward to a season where Miami has a 9.5 over-under or win total going into this year and needs to hit the over.
See, when I saw Chevis Jackson, I saw that name, and this was only maybe 90 minutes ago. I thought, okay, well, we've got a leading topic for our show. Number one. Number two, I thought, Chevis Jackson, I know that name. And I know the spelling of that name. And it took me a few minutes to trace it back to LSU and think, yeah, and he was really good. I would not have guessed first team All SEC. I don't think that I would have guessed that. I knew that he started for a national championship team, and they were obviously really good. I can only imagine, yes, the rest of that 2007 SEC first team.
Right. And again, like I just off the top of my head, Ollie Highsmith, Craig Steltz, and Glenn Dorsey, along with Chevis Jackson, all first team performers. Saban had them boys rolling that year. So, yeah.
They have the distinction of being the only 2-loss national champion since forever. They are the only one of the BCS and playoff era for sure.
Yeah. No,
they lost 2 overtime games.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's unique. And I literally it came to me as I was saying that Saban was the coach there then. So,
Les Miles.
Oh, it was Les Miles.
Yeah, Saban's last year was 2004. He went to the Dolphins.
Then he went to the Dolphins.
Miles in 2005.
You're right. Darn, I was going to make a good point about defensive back coaching knowledge. And you stole it from me, but I would rather be right than pompous or whatever. Pomposity. But yeah, darn. In any event, it's still a good get, I think. I think he obviously, reuniting with someone that has hired him and he worked with in Lance Guidry previously, and just continuing his career here. So, very excited to see what Chevis Jackson can do. And he has knowledge of the system and the scheme and the way that they want to run things because, like I said, he's worked with Lance Guidry before. So, obviously, would have liked to have kept Jamil Adai, I think. But, he's moving on to the NFL level and everything. Wish him all the best. And, I think that you find a coach who fits what you want to do and how you want to do it. So hopefully they're able to get the same synergy that they had previously at Marshall, and the players on the team here at Miami benefit from that. And we move forward and we win games.
Falconer TRX leading us off as always. Sweet. Falconer, thank you so much for that. We appreciate you getting us started and contributing to the show, of course. Did we get spring dates in terms of the game? We know what Saturday that falls, but in terms of the launch of spring football, the first practice, are we aware of that date?
Shout out to Jackson Johnson, who is tireless on Twitter in always publishing and sharing the show to people. So what's up, Hurricanes Nation? What's up to you, Jackson, man? Appreciate you. Haven't interacted with it a lot because I send out my own thing and I will retweet that sometimes, but I see that. So shout out to you for that, first of all. To Mark's question, yes, I did share this from the State of the U Twitter account, which is at the State of the U, in case you were wondering, which is the same thing on all of our socials, by the way. But yes, the graphic was shared. So March 4th is the first day of spring practice, and then we go for 1 week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then everybody goes to whatever tropical location they choose to enjoy for their debauchery for a week, because it is then spring break, and then we come back after that spring. So it's the 9th to the 17th are the dates of University of Miami spring break. Then we're back on Tuesday the 19th. Go from there, and then practice number 15 is Saturday, April the 13th, which should be the spring game, because you only get those 15 practices, which includes the spring game, I do believe. So yeah, we do have those dates already published and everything. They're sharing the pictures and very selected video from the, I don't even know what we call the off-season program now. If it's the fourth quarter, the mat drills, the championship program, whatever, I don't know. But whatever, we put on the tracking vests and do all the plyometrics and things program, that's ongoing currently. So you see they're kind of more or less grinding in silence, but we will finally get to see the team March the 4th and then April 13th for the spring game, I do believe.
Falconer TRX, thank you for reminding everyone that, keep this in mind, folks, Cam has a nice following, of course, on Twitter and on social media through his own personal account and through State of the U. I'm on Twitter as well with whatever number of followers. But there are people that only you are connected to on social media. So as Falconer TRX reminds everyone, share the links on social media or just give us a shout out. Let people know that we are here talking Canes every week. And you may be the only person that can make contact with that group of people that can reach them on our behalf. So we would so much appreciate that. All right, Cam, who do you think would be one player that you would be the least surprised marches into spring practice as a true freshman and just has jaws dropping all over the place? Who is the most likely to show that they immediately belong?
That's a good question. In terms of ability, in terms of ability and opportunity, as in their position is not as stacked on the roster this year as other years. I don't know if he's going to wear number 0 in college, but he did in high school. 4-star, borderline 5-star safety, Zaquan Patterson from Chaminade. I think that he's a guy who there's a real opportunity for him to step in and play right away and show up right now and be like, hey, I know that we were looking for guys to replace, James Williams and Cameron Kinchins. We're looking, I'm one of those guys. So just letting you know, I think that he's in a prime position, both from his own talent and the outgoing talent, you know what I mean? Or that has been removed from the roster for that. I think that JoJo Trader, his high school teammate, another borderline 4-star, 5-star player at the wide receiver position, has the opportunity to step forward. Incredibly talented kid, man. Oh, man. And, I've been bemoaning the loss of Jeremiah Smith, elsewhere in the world of recruiting, which is true, but two things can be true at the same time, because JoJo Trader is nice with it, and he has the ability potentially to step up. So could Nye Carr, the slot receiver. He's more of a slot than outside. Is Justin Scott an early enrollee? Because if he is, he needs to be on this list. Plain and simple. I don't even know. I'm not going to look it up because I have way too many tabs open and I don't want my computer to slow down or shut down on me again. But if he's in for spring, Justin Scott. So there are a couple of guys, but I mean, really, you look at the recruiting class that we just signed and you start at the top, and those top 4 to 6 guys, I think, have the talent that you're talking about where, the cream rises to the top early, just because they're those kind of recruits in general. So yeah, like a Zaquan Patterson, a JoJo Trader, a Marquise Lightfoot, who just was lighting the world on fire through his senior season and all-star season. Justin Scott is a giant freak of an athlete, guys like that. And there's maybe another couple of guys on that list. He's not a true freshman, but like Markel Bell is a mountain of a man and blocks out the sun on the offensive line. So interested to see how that works itself out also. But yeah, I just gave you 5 good names that I think could make an early impression from spring practice. So we'll see if those are the ones that happen. But off the top of my head, yeah, that's a solid list.
When I pose that type of question and hear that type of response, my mind goes to, I wonder how an upperclassman that can play, not talking about a program player that knew from the start where their place was, that they were just going to fill in on the scout team and do those sorts of things. But I'm talking about a good player, a solid starter, let's say, not a great player, solid starter, how they process or how their ego takes a hit when they've been in the program for 3-4 years. They're going into a senior season, let's say, and let's say they could vie for an NFL draft position, but some true freshman just shows them up almost immediately.
I mean, look, it happens. It just, I mean, look at a guy like last year, like Corey Flagg, who started for the majority of the previous 2 years, right? Then you get Francisco Mawanoa coming over from Washington State, who does what you do better, and he's bigger, okay, and more athletic. Like, okay. Then you have KJ Cloyd, so he's taking starter snaps, and then Wesley Basang takes a step forward, and then like you're even seeing the true freshman recruits who like are not to the level of Flagg's performance, like 1-to-1, but they have that potential and they need to get reps. So they're starting to, seed some of those snaps for him and everything, and still stayed ready when it was his opportunity, has the game-winning play against Clemson, and then it's like, cool, I have another year of eligibility, and everybody that I mentioned by name or implied as in that freshman class is coming back, with the singular exception of KJ Cloyd, who was like a 6th-year senior. Where's the room for good old number 11? There's not really. And so, then they will move on. But it's income. I mean, it obviously is a hit to the ego. And I mean, like, everybody wants to go pro in their sport and whatnot. But then sometimes shout out to Joel Anderson of Slate, who's a frequent contributor on multiple shows I listen to, including Bomani Jones's show. And he tells the story of he was the fastest 10-year-old in America. And like literally, he went to like the 10-year-old Olympics or whatever, and he was like, yo, like, and that's his claim to fame. Played running, he's from Texas, played running back, went to TCU, and Gary Patterson famously called him out. He's told this story many times. You can go look it up on whatever show. Called him out in a team meeting or at practice and was just like, yeah, so you got this and this and this. And then you got Anderson here with these cement feet or whatever. And like, again, this is for a guy who's like, I'm the fastest 10-year-old in America. I'm a speed player. And Gary Patterson calls him out for having cement feet, right? Eventually you realize maybe going on the other side of the microphone or whatever it is. But one of the things that we talk about in terms of the recruiting rules and how you make a builded roster is the intent is to recruit over whoever's there in front of you while pushing that player to develop moving forward. If the development hits, then you see guys who continue to play, a la Jalen Rivers, right? We have endeavored to recruit over him with 4-star and 5-star offensive linemen, but his development and performance has kept him ahead of those guys. So that's the other part of the social contract of coming to this football team, or any football team that needs to be engaged with. We are going to bring you in and give you every single opportunity. And we're also going to try to bring in better, because that's how we always get better. If you do not hit your markers for success, then we're going to give to somebody whose longevity might have the potential to be able to hit that. So it's always got to be tough. But I mean, that's why you're talking about, hey, man, you're fighting for your spot. You're fighting for every snap. You're fighting for your job. Now, in some cases, like, I don't want Mario Cristobal to come out here and insult my intelligence. Like, there's going to be a quarterback other than Cam Ward who's going to start. Like, I mean, don't do that. But otherwise, you know what it's like going in. Obviously, we want everybody to do their best. But, like, yeah, if you get passed over, and we've seen it, like, Cyrus Moss, gone. You know what I mean? He got passed over. Like, the next year, who we bring in? Ruben Maine, ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year. What position did he play? The position that I play, and I haven't been able to get on the field? Yo, danger, Will Robinson, danger. Like, it's just a thing that happens. But we push everybody to be their best. If they're able to do that and stay in front of whoever's recruited over them behind them, great. If not, I mean, we got clipboards and Gatorade.
Lost in Space, one of my favorite shows from my childhood. So I can appreciate that. Leroy, thanks for being here, Leroy. Leroy's thinking big. If we ever hit the over in terms of win total, do you think we will have the number one class in 2025?
I don't think it's a direct correlation. And so the over being our win total is 9.5. We win 10 or 11 regular season games because it's a regular season number, right? Or 12, God willing, like undefeated. I will accept that with a gracious heart. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's a direct correlation to that win total and that final class ranking, right? And you can see that because, like, 7-win season, this class ends up third or fourth, depending on, I don't know, it's like fractional. It's like, at this point, it's a decimal. But, and the year before that was a top 5, or, which at the end, because of transfers, I think slipped to 7 or something on a 5-7 season. So I think it opens the door for the possibility in a stronger way. And if you look at the recruiting battles that Miami lost last year, right? Think of, I'm just going to go at the top of the list. Jeremiah Smith, number 1 player in America, right? Obviously that would have, David Stone, 5-star defensive lineman, whose whole family dressed like your boy, had the Hurricanes hats and everything, and he commits to Oklahoma, and his whole squad is like, we're going to... David, what did you just say? Right? Think about that. You lose that battle. A Dylan Stewart, 5-star defensive end, that Miami was engaged in that recruitment for a good long time in. There's maybe a couple others, right? But if you win, instead of being a 7-win team, we'll call it 10 or 11, whatever you want to call it. But you have a 10 or 11 win team and you win. I just gave you 3 names, right? You win 2 of those recruiting battles. I'm sure I could go through my Rolodex in my brain and say, okay, well, there's other high, 4-star, 5-star guys that we were engaged with. That Kevin Riley from Tuscaloosa County, Alabama, who was committed to Miami and then, flipped to Alabama late. And then, we took Jordan Lyle. I think maybe we would have dropped Chris Wheatley-Humphrey had Kevin Riley not. But he ends up ascending in the rankings at the end. He's the number 1 running back in America. That's a guy who was in this class. So now you add in the number 1 running back in America. You add in a David Stone, who's a top 2 and maybe not 2 defensive lineman. You add in J4, who's the number 1 player in America. You add in, maybe a couple of these other guys that you're engaged with. And that class that's borderline 3-4, you could be looking at a number 1. Could be. So I don't think that there's a direct correlation. I just think that if we win to the level of this hypothetical question, which is 10 plus regular season wins, I think the number one class in the country is firmly in play. But we'll see.
I process these numbers concerning Miami's roster, their recruiting ranking, and their win totals differently and more frequently than on any other show, probably all the other shows I do combined, because I'm just taking in the information you just gave me, Cam. Top 3 to 4 class this last recruiting cycle. Of course, we know that the current class, the most recent class, has the least impact because they're just freshmen, but they will have an impact of some sort. I'm sure somebody could give us a gauge on what that impact is versus the other classes. I would guess that it's probably 25, 30% of what it should be that second year, third year, something like that. But it's still a top 3 to 4 class in the country. Then the number 7 class, those players are now sophomores. And then the roster that was inherited by Mario Cristobal, which, let's see, that preceding class that I'm getting to would be the one that he wrapped up, correct? That Manny Diaz generally built. And those were not chopped liver. He generally inherited a top 15 roster in college football. Why the collection of this can't equal a high number of wins this year?
It absolutely can. And again,
with an incoming quarterback who's the best transfer quarterback in the country.
The best returning quarterback in the country. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, but it should be. But I went and looked at the visits just to give a couple more names, right? So you have Jeremiah Smith, who visited 5-star, number 1 in America. Xavier Mincy, who ends up at Alabama. He's a 5-star. Chris Cole, the linebacker, who Miami thought was in the lead. They were in the lead for a good long time. He has a monster senior year out of Virginia. He shoots up and it ends up as a 5. He was a 4-star the entire way. He's a 5-star at the end, right? That's a guy that we battled for. Isendre Afua, the offensive lineman from Seattle, high 4-star, who visited as well. That was a guy that Miami was in, Jaden Jackson, who went to, Oklahoma. David Stone, Ellis Robinson. I know we only had a puncher's chance there, but Dylan Stewart, Colin Simmons, LJ McCray, all those are 5-star guys. Aiden Breland, 4-star guy. And these are all guys who visited. You know what I mean? So, like, you win half, or like not even half, because that's a lot, but those are like, when you have those numbers of elite recruits, because every single player I just named was a 4-star or 5-star recruit that did not choose Miami, and we already had the third or fourth. So now imagine having those guys, or a couple of those guys, I gave you 12 names. Imagine 4 to 5 of those now are included in this class. And again, we had, unlimited scholarship numbers, for a while, because of the thing, but that would have been, so when you think of the players that Miami was very closely connected to in recruiting and ended up losing out fractionally, right? It's not a far distance to say, hey, from where we ended up this year at borderline 3-4, you flip a couple of those results, and especially certain ones, because not only are you gaining that player, that other team is losing that player off of their list. Like I said, I mentioned Oklahoma 2 or 3 times with the defensive lineman, right? And I know that they weren't even above us, but, you do those things and the numbers can escalate pretty easily. So if Miami looks like they're going to be a double-digit win team, and obviously, Cristobal being one of the more insane and good recruiting coaches in the country, I think the number 1 class could firmly be in play. But instead of hitting singles to the gap, maybe we busted out of the box and we turned those line drives into hustle doubles. You need to be hitting some 400-foot bombs, 500-foot bombs. That's Ellis Robinson, bang. J4, bang. David Stone, bang. On top of the home runs and the moonshots that you already hit, right? So it's not just hitting the ones that you hit, it's hitting all or way more of them. So it's possible. It's possible, but there's still work to be done.
To stay on your analogy there, let's say the batting champion hit 350 and you hit 330.
Mm-hmm.
You need to stay in the cage and probably on a 600 at-bat season, squeak out about 15 or 20 more hits.
Right. Oh, that's not that many and everything. Right. It's not that many. Right. And, again, imagine, and I still don't have evidence that this existed. Imagine that Jeremiah Smith pulls out the fictional Miami hat that he supposedly, reportedly allegedly had in the bag there, right? Because I don't believe he mentioned it. Nobody followed up on it. I have not seen that this thing exists. So I'm not trusting him at his word. Sorry, my guy. However, right, imagine a multiverse where that is the thing that changes, right? Imagine a multiverse where David Stone, instead of going against the general, because Miami thought he was coming too, by the way. It wasn't just his family, right? But imagine that he commits where everybody in the Oklahoma thought he was coming to Miami. Miami thought he was coming to Miami. His family thought he was coming to Miami. Imagine that. Those two guys right there, 5 stars at the top of the list, hello, on top of hello. So again, it's like, yeah, over the course of, all these at-bats and all these visits and all these calls and all these, it's only a couple different results. But if you get those couple different results and on top of the success that was already seen, that's how steps can be taken forward. So, I think that it would help, along the recruiting trail if Miami did win some of these extra games, because, we've heard from a multitude of players and whatever that, Miami not having the current kind of success that they want to have was the barrier between these elite players coming to Miami or not. So I think it would help, Leroy, and that's a really great question.
Falconer coming back with this one. Any talk of a portal guy who could shock people?
If there is, I don't know it. Not at this point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see just whatever happens to in the spring transfer portal in general. Obviously, I think that it was tough for, some players when Jamil Adai left, and it's been tough all over the world of college football because there have been coaches who have been leaving for all kinds of other jobs at all, times recently. So it'll be interesting, but the answer to that question right now is I don't know, but we'll see.
We've got Corey. Appreciate you being here, Corey. When do you think we'll see Travonte and Zion play, if at all?
That is Travonte Citizen and Zion Nelson, the running back and offensive lineman, respectively. I don't think that we ever see them play at Miami. I think if there's a chance that we see one play at Miami again, it would be Travonte Citizen. But the fact that it's been really radio silent and 2 years for his knee injury is kind of unsettling, because there were a couple known setbacks along his recovery path. Zion Nelson, I'm not sure that he plays football again. And it's been really quiet. But, I mean, this is a guy who's had multiple. I mean, we're talking about Travonte Citizen having 2 known setbacks. Zion Nelson's had double that probably. I mean, it's been tough to watch. And, I mean, this is from a guy who, we thought maybe was profiling towards being a, top 65 NFL draft pick a couple of years ago. But, yeah, it's the combination of the length of time that they've been dealing with these injuries and the complete radio silence from Miami, because they're not even, when asked, Mario Cristobal's not even really giving updates. It's not even, on track and we'll see for spring and da-da-da. It's really been intentionally, players are going through rehab, we're doing the thing and we'll see. It's been really the way that they've shunned those questions for a while, specifically, really more for Zion than Travonte, but still both, it don't sit right with me. It seems that there's some to me, and I am totally using my, context clues and knowledge of, just having been around these situations before, not saying that I know anything from anyone in Miami. This is my supposition. So let me be clear on that. But yeah, it feels off in a way that was like, it just reminds me of like Malik Young, Amon Richards. Like, we're not really saying anything and giving space for the player to make an announcement and a decision. And I don't hope that. I hope to be wrong. I hope that, it just ended up taking 2.5, 3 years and they come back. But I would say if spring is going to tell a lot of this story, especially if Zion doesn't play this spring. But Travonte Citizen did. He was suited up for the bowl game. He was in the bowl practices. He still had that big knee brace, but he was out there. So if there's one that I think plays, it would be Travonte Citizen over Zion Nelson, but I am not necessarily optimistic of either at this point.
We appreciate you being here. Please hit the like button. It's a simple thing to do, but shows the YouTube algorithm that you do, in fact, like the video and enjoy your time here with Cam and myself. So please hit the like button. Also, we've got an Amazon link. It's in the description section of all the videos. So please, when you shop on Amazon, it's an easy thing to do. Grab the link that we provide. It's the same exact shopping experience. So you can use that link, help us grow the channel. All right. This college football playoff was altered because of the demise of the Pac-12 from a 6+6, meaning 6 conference champions and 6 at-large bids, to 5+7. Do you have any thoughts about the college football playoff?
I mean, I think it opens the door for, I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be more Big Ten and SEC teams, to be honest, because those are, basically the Fox College Football League and the ESPN College Football League, and they're going to push for more of their teams to be in the conversation and in the playoff because, money. And I get it. It does give, with an extra at-large bid, right? So 5 conference champions, that being Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12, and then the highest ranked of the group of 5 champions being the automatic 5. You got 7 slots. So, I mean, like, you can think that's an extra slot going from 6 at-larges to 7. That's an extra slot that could go to Miami. If we're being Miami-centric on this Miami show, talking to this Miami blogger who's a Miami alum. Like, yeah, I get it. I don't know that the ACC and ACC team, unless there's like a real level of excellence, would be in contention for that spot, because ostensibly I'm thinking, right? So you're going to have probably the runners-up from, SEC championship game, Big Ten championship game. So the losers of those, that's 2 right there. Notre Dame, if they do their thing, that's 3 as an at-large, because they're not, they would never get a conference championship slot because they're not in the conference still. So Notre Dame's in the conversation. And then, like I said, you're going to go back and forth and say, hey, maybe the third best team in the best team in the Big Ten and or SEC, not even to make it to the championship game, they're probably going to get in. And so then it's just like, well, is the second team from the ACC of the level of excellence to override the external financial concerns and of the playoff, and like, basically college football being owned by, Fox and ESPN at this point. So that's where things come in. And then honestly, it needs to be, that team has to have that kind of caliber to them. And it has to be too, because I don't know that there's a scenario that I see the ACC getting 3 teams in. Like, it's going to take 2001 Miami and 15 Clemson and 13 Florida State all existing in the same universe of the same season to get 3 teams in. So does it open the door for that second ACC team to slot in, at 11 or 12, since there's 7 at large bids? Yeah. But being realistic about it, I don't think that the ACC is probably going to get 3 teams in, but I think that, having the extra slot could potentially be helpful for Miami or any other ACC team. But I could just as easily see that going to 4th best SEC team or whatever, as opposed to diversifying the pool and like going, to another Big 12 team or, another ACC team or another Group of 5, even champion. I don't even know if that would be how it goes, but it'll be very interesting. Yeah.
If you guys want my thoughts, posted a video on the playoff tweak, the new format. Give it a look. I will say this toward what you are addressing here would be, look at this last Big Ten season. So there was an undefeated team in Michigan. There was a 1-loss team in Ohio State. There was a 2-loss team in Penn State.
That only lost to those teams.
That lost to those 2 teams, as they have the last 2 years. Then you've got the 4 incoming from the West Coast, with Oregon with a 1-loss team and Washington a 2-loss or a 0-loss team. So even consider this. So those 5 would have been in the playoff from one conference. Now, I understand that the schedule's different, going to be different and slightly tougher, but this is how I kind of filtered through that, was that Penn State is not going to have to play Ohio State and Michigan going forward, both of them each season. So they're trading a difficult game that they lost for another difficult game. So even if they lose that game, even if you tack on 1 to 2 losses for everybody but Penn State, they still all make the playoffs. They're undefeated and 1-loss teams. So they're still going to make the playoffs. Because I've run the numbers, and basically 10-2 is the guarantee that you are in the playoffs. 9-3, it drops considerably to maybe 20% of the time are you going to make the playoffs. Now, what I want to see is whether the playoff committee is going to go into this in a sense that you're not necessarily leaning, but you laid out the groundwork for a Big Ten SEC centric, initiative that these are the better teams. Therefore, we're going to give those 2nd and 3rd and 4th slots to those teams. Even if they play it straight, let's say there's no influence based on television and ratings and money and all those things, and there's not a bias toward, well, we just assume that they're the better conferences. They're obviously going to judge the non-conference games, the big major non-conference games, as being that deciding factor. And then also, as we saw during the playoff era of the 4 teams, the SEC built up this equity of being a postseason juggernaut that gained them preferential treatment, even though it shouldn't have, because each season should be judged on its own merits, but gave them that preferential favoritism from history, from a historical standpoint. So I'll be curious to see if they how they approach it from those angles. And one other thought here is that even though everyone tends to believe, and I get it, that the money drives it and the TV ratings drive it and the big brands drive it until this Florida State situation in 2023. For the first 9 years of the playoffs, the playoff committee took in order the Power 5 teams with the best records. They never jumped a team, let's say, that was 10-2 over an 11-1 team. They never did that until this Florida State situation.
Right. Very true. And everything you bring forward, especially with adding Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten cadre, is true. And that was 5 teams. I'm just going to give you teams that were 10-2 in the regular season, like you said, right? In the SEC, that was Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, and Missouri last year. So between those 2 conferences, we just gave you 10 teams at or above the 10-2 line for the 12-team playoff. Good luck if you're another team outside of that. And honestly, some of those teams are getting screwed in the 12. Even now, I know, okay, well, they're going to play each other and the math's going to be slightly different. Yeah. But just going off of what we saw last year, 5 teams over there, 5 teams over here, and not enough seats. It's going to be very interesting. But, I would love for Miami to interject themselves in the situation by winning games, as Leroy talked about earlier. So hopefully we are able to do that.
So take what you just did and take the ACC and the Big 12 into consideration. Florida State would be in a 12-team playoff, of course. They were 13-0. So they're in. But Louisville's the second-place team in the ACC. They lost the conference championship game to fall to 10-3.
10-2 regular season. See ya.
Texas won. Now, they wouldn't even be a Big 12 team going forward, but whomever would win that Big 12 championship game gets the automatic bid. Oklahoma State was the conference championship game loser. They were 9-4.
Oh yeah,
they're not getting in.
Not, so it's gonna be interesting. I think there's gonna be more of a fight for the 8 through 12 seeds moving forward. But yeah, it will be very, very interesting. But every game still matters, only to extent, because it's fun. It's fun to laugh at them, but like having Florida State left out was, yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow, because it's just like, look, they did everything they were supposed to do. They changed the way that they did it. And again, you guys know, I respect Florida State. I do not like them. I cannot stand them people up in Gainesville. But they did everything that they were asked to do in a multitude of different ways, and then got left out. So that was challenging, because it's just like, yeah, and I get it, and I know Jordan Travis is a college kid, reacting emotionally. He's like, well, damn, I wish I would have fucking broken my leg in September if da-da-da-da. Now, they don't win all those games without him, just period. That's just the way it is. But there's a lot to that conversation. But yeah, it goes to your point, though. If you have so many teams in the power conferences, which really is Big Ten and SEC, you might get one from these other conferences, but now with the extra free open bid, potentially that's where a second team from the ACC could slot in, if it went down that way. But it's going to really be a show and prove why your level of excellence exceeds others for any ACC team that's not the champion to get in to the playoff. And like I said, that's now, like, having gone down, this really kind of illustrates what I was talking about maybe 2, 3 is a bridge too far. You're not jumping all those teams from the money conferences, but you're just, even with a similar record, even if you had a head-to-head against one of them, you might jump that one, but then cool. It's just like, great. I got 12 more to try to get in front of it. I don't know if that is going to happen.
And look at the non-conference schedules for these teams. The likelihood of one of them facing in a non-conference game the exact team that they're going to be measured against in a head-to-head is obviously the odds are slim.
Well, I mean, yeah, but there's also, I like that we are getting the cross-sectional games back, so like Texas and Michigan, are playing, State and Oregon. Well, that's damn a conference game now, but, you get the point.
What is Miami's bit? Well, Miami's got Florida this year.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that's their big non-conference game. Okay. Paulo, thank you so much for the 5 spot. What impact would it have on Miami if they win 10 and miss a playoff spot based on how they would be viewed to teams with equal records in the SEC and the Big Ten?
I mean, I think that we kind of just spoke to that. It would be a negative. It would solidify status as a third-class citizen and, give another data point towards leaving the ACC. And I know that Florida State is, they're the squeaky wheel getting the grease, but remember, like, Miami was the first school that was talking about all this stuff before, when Dan Radakovich came over. So, yeah, I mean, it would be just like it was to Florida State to be left out as an undefeated team from the playoff. It was injurious to their image and everything. So, like, yeah, it would be a negative, and it is a built-in negative recruiting point. Like, hey, you can go to Florida State and go 13-0 and not make the playoff. That is a thing that we have seen. That's a concrete, verifiable fact. You can go to Miami, go 11-1, win your or 11-1, lose your conference championship game, and not make the playoff against another team that was 11-2 or 11-1 regular season that didn't even make it to their conference championship game. That would be a negative for sure. I would be hopeful that if Miami were to win 10, that it would be done in such a way that we would, be able to earn or be given, because it's really not earn or deserve. It's, what they give, be selected for that. And it would not be, a redux of Isaiah Thomas and the Dream Team. You're talking about, like, if you look at the credentials, I had the credentials, but I was not selected, and I fear that could be the case. But you win enough games, those arguments go out the window.
I'll take Cam out of this, since in this scenario, he would be obviously biased. So I'll just include myself. So for me in particular, it wouldn't matter, but I'm the analytical, nerdy type who does this for a living. And I would be saying, well, Miami didn't technically make the playoff, but based on my power rankings and based on I've matched this up, and they actually were a better team than the 12th team that made it into it. So that wouldn't affect my thinking, but I'm not the person that they are marketing to. They're marketing to the masses, and they're also marketing, to Cam's point, to recruits. And that's what matters, is their perception of just, oh, you didn't make the playoffs. You didn't make the playoffs. We don't care why you didn't. We don't care that maybe you got ripped off or whatever the case might be. It's just simply, oh, you didn't make the playoffs. Or maybe even it's a more egregious point that you did earn a playoff spot or should have been selected to playoffs, but you didn't get selected. That may be a worse PR situation.
Right. And again, that's exactly what Florida State is going through. So, like, yeah, like, it's the name and the brand and the logo and everything is right there, and then not. And it's just like, so then that by default then lowers the value of that brand, because, like, so that's what I mean. But I mean, it's hard to see. I mean, and like, because then again, this gets into like a lot into the future. And I know that we talk about that and everything, but like, what could be the impact? I mean, like, we've seen lots of impact around the world of college football. We've seen head coaches leave to the NFL. We've seen assistants, even from Miami, leave to the NFL. We've seen head coaches leave their good jobs at top 5 public schools in the country, going to be coordinators at other schools. You know what I mean? Like, there's, players leaving and, lawsuits and grant of rights negotiations. Like, the impact could be wide and variegated. Like, we're not really sure, but I mean, yeah, just in a general sense, boiling this down to a single sentence. If Miami was in position to be in the college football playoff and for whatever reason were not selected, I would be very hard pressed to find a way that would not be a negative holistically. So that's it.
Every Wednesday, folks. Appreciate you being here. For those that are just joining us, you can, of course, hit the rewind button, which that does not exist. I'm speaking in old-fashioned terms, but you know what I mean. You can rewatch this at any point, so please check out what you missed. Yes, it doesn't connect. No, it's not there. Cam, what's going on at State of the U?
Lots of good stuff. Had Justin DeTavio talking about the Twitter wars between Brett Bielema and Mario Cristobal. A couple other things going on, and basketball coverage. Mike Schiffman has been doing a yeoman's job on that. Miami is playing Duke at the Watsco Center right now. I have no idea what that score is because I'm in the office room. I'm not in the living room watching it. But yeah, all of that is there. And, got some other things percolating for you. So be sure that you come on over and fan with us at stateoftheu.com, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. As you see on the screen, personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. Love is Blind Season 6. Whew, messy. I got to continue with that journey because they just released new episodes today. And matter of fact, after the basketball game ends, I might dive back into that. But yeah.
So I think I've seen a promo or two. Two people, do they have to get married and not see each other, or what's the deal?
So basically, it's blind dating in pods. You talk to people through a wall, you learn their personality and everything. If your personality is you fall in love without seeing them, then you get engaged, you meet each other. There's a 4-week process where you go through there's like a trip to Punta Cana or Mexico or whatever, you live together, you go through the whole thing, and at the end they have a wedding, and then you decide, do you want to marry this person or do you not? So yeah, the beginning or the majority of the courting process at first is sight unseen. So that is kind of the hook of that. And there are a couple of people this season who are capital letters messy. So I am very excited to dive back into that mess. Because, if anything, like, I love a good messy reality TV show every now and then. So, I mean, which is really sports in general, right? So, yeah.
And this is a variation on Love at First Sight. That's pretty much the same. That was another show of the same ilk.
Yeah, of a similar ilk on TLC. Yeah, like you do the whole applications, the experts vet you, and they're like, cool, you, and then, hi, we're at the altar, and my name's Cam, and your name's Susan. Okay, yeah, so similar.
So we appreciate your question here, Semper Fi Kane, but just watch the rest of the episode. Cam has addressed Travonte Citizen and also Zion Nelson. Yes. So thank you for that. Then we've got Falconer TRX.
I literally earlier today, I was in a meeting and I was like, Falconer's going to ask me about, and I couldn't believe that I couldn't remember Shake It Off as the title of the Taylor Swift song from last week. That's the one I was gravitating to. That would probably be it, just because it's like Empty Calories, teeny bop. I just want to hate. It's just like, it's a good pop song. So I would say, yeah, that would be it if I had to choose. But I'm not, again, still widely versed in her whole discography, but that would be it.
If you're not aware, folks, you'll want to catch last week's episode for, of course, the football discussion first and foremost. But Cam was asked to evaluate and review Taylor Swift's vocal abilities, and I was blown away. And I've been talking to Cam for 10 years and have heard him talk about such things, but I was still blown away at the intricacy and the exhaustive nature of the breakdown. That was exceptional. So now
I appreciate that. And like, this is the sports side of me, but like, I have a degree in music education and like I've been a performer my entire life. Like, like it's a thing. So like, when asked about that, it was just like, oh, we're going to go back to when I was teaching and like actually go into vocal coach mode and everything. Cause like done that for more than 20 years, guys. So you got a little bit of a taste of that in case you didn't know. So I wasn't just talking out of my keister, like I'm actually a learned person in performance music. Like, yeah.
There was a especially salty, nasty, unfair comment sent to me this week, and I posted it on Twitter, and I put Q Taylor Swift, and I was wondering if anyone was going to catch on to the haters going to hate.
Yeah.
Nobody took the bait on me. People just hit the like button. I thought maybe they're getting it. I don't know.
I think that maybe that's what that was, but yeah, I would say shake it off. Just for that line, that chorus is just so relatable, because if the haters are going to do anything, they're going to hate and hate and hate and hate. And hey, look, even with friends of mine, like shout out to Rich, like actual good guy and everything, but I don't know when, but years ago, I just like started this hating on my friend online of him stealing stuff and like trying to get like someone to arrest him for this. It's just been an ongoing thing. So he was like, oh yeah, like my birthday's coming up. So I quote tweeted it. I was just like, and I hope that the sheriff's office from where you live has a nice size 6 handcuffs and a wet, dirty cell for you, or like whatever. And just like it's fun. Like haters are going to hate. So yeah, even myself in a joking way sometimes.
After we got that analysis from you last week, I think I pointed out that Taylor Swift is my daughter's favorite. And I was surprised that I went online and I identified 12 Taylor Swift songs that I know.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
well,
look, she has plenty of them, and plenty of albums that she's re-recorded and everything to take back the master's ownership because of the shenanigans in the music business. And I'm not going to get into all that. Y'all know all that stuff. But I mean, yeah. But having the stature to be able to do that, is pretty cool. And yeah, like there are people who are huge fans. So and reasonably so, because yeah, I think that she's a dynamic performer. But yeah, if I had to say Falcon or TRX, getting back to your question, shake it off, because the haters are going to hate. That'd be my favorite.
Very cool. All right, don't be a hater. Hit the like button on your way out and make it on back here next week. And Cam, we appreciate you doing this. I am going to send you an email because I'm going to, along these same lines, I want your honest evaluation. But all right, thank you for being here. As always, making this work. Without Cam, we don't have a channel. We don't have a show. So do the opposite of hating Cam and get on over there to State of the U to check out the work each and every day.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon.